in D.C. to call attention to the importance of Juneteenth. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com, and I sell custom blinds designed for do-it-yourselfers. Unlike stock blinds offered at big box retailers, Blindster blinds are custom made for your windows and shipping is free. Don't hire an expensive pro. Do it yourself and save big at Blindster.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Bronny James has been cleared to participate in all activities at this week's NBA pre-draft camp in Chicago. LeBron's son got the good news late Sunday from the NBA's Fitness to Play panel. The decision allows the former USC player to compete in 5-on-5 scrimmages, which begin Tuesday. Personnel from all 30 NBA teams will be at the pre-draft camp to evaluate Bronny and 77 other prospects. Bronny has until May 29th to pull his name out of the draft and stay in college. The Atlanta Hawks will have the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. Atlanta won the NBA lottery yesterday, despite having only a 3% chance to win it. The NBA draft is June 26th in Brooklyn. The Dodgers lose by 4 at San Diego yesterday. It was the second time this season the Dodgers have been shut out. The Dodgers open a 3-game series tonight in San Francisco. The Dodgers still have the third best record in the major leagues at 27-15. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, it's Tavis Smiley. First, thank you for your support of KBLA Talk 1580. We deeply appreciate you. So, I get asked all the time, Tavis, when are you going to bring back that State of the Black Union symposium you used to do? You know, the one where you had all those black intellectuals on stage every year and everybody watched all day live on C-SPAN? Yeah, I know the one.
Let's bring them back.
Well, I am pleased to tell you that if you go to KBLA1580.com right now, you can sign up to be in the audience here in Los Angeles when we go back live on C-SPAN with a stage full of black thinkers and influencers for a historic conversation. America has never seen a stage full of black folk talking about the urgency of now. Climate justice, climate equity, climate resilience. It's going down Tuesday, June 18th, 4 to 7 p.m. at the California Science Center in Exposition Park. Admission is free, but you must register at KBLA1580.com. Once we reach capacity, you'll have to watch us on C-SPAN. But if you want to be in the room when we go live from Los Angeles, Tuesday, June 18th, head to KBLA1580.com right now to reserve your seat. Caring about the climate, caring about the community. With KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
I believe up there. Hey!
I'm gonna try to keep it coming. Things ain't always smooth, but I'll be alright as long as I can find the good. Yes, I will. Somehow I know that I can make it. You seem to like my style. Don't you worry, I'm gonna be around a while. I'm just happy to see you talk to me back and start again. I'm just happy to see you talk to me back and start again.
Welcome and good day. This is the Tavis Smiley program. I, as you can tell, am not Tavis. My name is Mark Riley. I'm sitting in for Tavis for the better part of this week, and it is my honor, absolute honor, to do so. For those of you who don't know me, because I know we go to more than one radio station, certainly out in California, where I have many, many family members, I used to host a talk show back when dinosaurs roamed the earth at WLIB Radio in New York City. I started there as an intern in 1973 and was there until 2013. Nice round numbers. And I said this to Tavis when we were talking a couple of weeks back, when we were talking about Air America Radio, that my entire adult career was spent working for Black people. I think one of a very small number of people who can actually say that. And I will say this, I would not have had it any other way. Now, we have a very special guest with us who is joining us from the great city of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. His name is Professor David Love. Professor Love is a professor, obviously, journalist and commentator who writes op-eds and investigative stories on a variety of issues, including politics, social justice, human rights, race, criminal justice, and inequality. He's an assistant teaching professor of journalism and media studies at the Rutgers School of Communication and Information. Professor Love, thank you so much for being with us. It's an honor to have you here. Professor, can you hear me? Uh-oh, we may have a wee bit of a technical glitch. But let's see. Can you hear me, Professor? Okay, no problem. We will get him on, pero, as they say in East Harlem, pero un momentito. I think maybe do we have him, Professor? Nope, not yet. Not quite yet. But be that as it may, these are the kinds of things that you have to work with. I've worked with far greater problems than an intermittent split with a guest. Believe me, I have. I remember going to do a remote broadcast in Brooklyn one time, many, many years ago. And we were supposed to have tables and chairs and the whole 9 yards. It was at Bed-Stuy Restoration, for those of you who know anything about Brooklyn. And we get there, maybe 7:30 in the morning for a 9 o'clock show, and there's nothing there. Nothing. Not even a phone line. We ended up having to do the program from inside, on a phone line, mind you, but from inside a camper van. And we did 3 hours inside that camper van because that's what we had to do. That's how radio used to work. Not so much now. I mean, there's a lot of technology that's going on. But be that as it may, technology sometimes doesn't always cooperate, but we'll make it work. We'll make it happen. And there's so many things I want to talk to Professor Love about. I want to talk about Israel, Gaza, which, and I'll say this right off the top. When October 7th, 2023 took place, and I heard a lot of rumors about babies being beheaded and all these different things. And I was doing a podcast back then. I no longer am doing it now. But I said to myself, and I said on the podcast, that if what was being reported was true, then Hamas committed acts of barbarism. Cutting off babies' heads, that's barbarism. There's no other way. You can call it terrorism if you want. I called it barbarism at the time. And my question as that happened was, what's going to happen with the Israeli response? Will they resort to barbaric tactics to deal with what was, for me, a barbarous situation? Now, I must say, some of those things I heard at the very beginning that happened in and around October 7th have been proven at least to be questionable. The people are now saying, well, there wasn't any evidence about babies. There wasn't any evidence about this. There wasn't any evidence about that. Here's what I can say, at least from my own perspective, and I should let you know by way of full disclosure, I am talking to you from England, from the United Kingdom, different place. But here's what I got from all these things that went on. And I think it starts with Hamas because they're the ones that, ended up overrunning and making an incursion into Israel. And I'm not sure anybody's really thought about this. Has it dawned on anybody that when Hamas hit that rock concert and attacked those kids, that maybe one of those kids would grow up to be a person, a statesman, unlike Benjamin Netanyahu, who might have been able to help the beginnings of a peace, a lasting peace in Israel, and Hamas killed those folks or killed that potential through what they did. Now, that's not to excuse what the Israelis have done. The Israelis have gone buck wild. And I have to say, and I don't hear a lot of this in the UK. I'm curious about whether you hear a lot of it in the States. It seems to me that Israel knows where the leadership of Hamas is. And it's not in Gaza. It's not on the West Bank. It's in some of the brokers of the supposed peace negotiations that are going on as we speak in the Middle East. Qatar, for example. There's a highly placed Hamas guy that's in Qatar. If the Israelis are intent on breaking the back of Hamas, how come they don't get the Qataris to cooperate and detain this person? Is there a law? Is there something going wrong here that I don't understand? I don't know. You never know. But let's go to a break. We're going to come back and we're going to talk to Professor David A. Love from Rutgers University. This is the Tavis Smiley program. My name is Mark Riley, and I'm honored to be here.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley. Tavis Smiley. Ranked number 45 on the Heavy 100 list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America.
Hey, y'all. Mona Swain here from Target's new YouTube series, My Card is...
Getting quality employees to fill positions in your company is essential, but finding those people can be a major hassle unless you use ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter makes finding quality people a breeze. ZipRecruiter's advanced technology identifies candidates with the right skills, sends you great matches, then you can easily invite them to apply. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. See for yourself. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/free to try ZipRecruiter for free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Smart talk for curious people just like you. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Well, not exactly. My name is Mark Riley. I'm sitting in for Tavis this week, and it's an honor to be here. 15 minutes past the hour, wherever you're listening to us. And it is a pleasure to welcome to our microphones from Rutgers School of Communication and Information, Professor David A. Love. Professor, how you doing?
Mr. Riley, I am doing very well. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Let me ask you right off the top, because we talked about a bunch of stuff off the air, and I want to get back to that, but I do want to start out with a piece you wrote for the Griot about the Squad, who, by the way, I find it's an extraordinary dichotomy to think that in a Congress that contains Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, and Matt Gaetz, that some people think the Squad are the most dangerous people in the United States House of Representatives. Talk about the piece that you wrote for the Griot.
Yes. I'm glad you brought it up. Well, I think people would be very interested, maybe surprised to know that the Israel lobby, particularly AIPAC, has pledged to spend $100 million to defeat the Squad. The predominantly, Congress people of color, Black and brown members of Congress, who have pretty much, come to the fore and have presented a different way of doing things in Congress, perhaps very progressive policies, perhaps against the establishment. And what we're finding is that basically, to make a long story short, you have billionaires, Republican billionaires, who are planning to spend a lot of money to throw these members of Congress out of Congress and to disrupt their Democratic primaries. And it I think raises an issue. Why is it that Republican billionaires and people who care about Israel would want to spend all this money to eliminate Black and brown and Muslim and Palestinian members of Congress? It's very interesting.
It is interesting, and I have to ask, because billionaires usually are business people, not always, but they're usually business people. Are the members of the Squad somehow impeding their businesses, or is this strictly on a political line that they have been critical of the Israeli government?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. On the one hand, you have a situation where, conservative folks who are, supporting Israel and making sure that the military funding continues, they want to make sure that they have pliable, conforming members of Congress who are going to go along with whatever they do. And there is this sense that if you have, this cohort, if you have these people in Congress, progressive, who are against, maintaining that funding to Israel so they can continue, the mass killing, apartheid, occupation of Palestinians, then there's a problem for them. But then I also think that when it comes to those who are against what is going on in Israel, very often Black people of color tend to be the targets of these campaigns. So I guess I'm not really surprised that it's happening. I think that the lobbyists, the billionaires, see these people as being, these members of Congress as being a problem. Mm-hmm. They give money to other Black people as well, who, in turn toe the line.
Toe the line on Israel? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, who either will stay silent or will actually actively support the maintenance of the status quo.
Well, I got to ask you, because I know that there have been some Democrats, and I mean, obviously, the billionaire Republicans are one thing, but there are people within the squad's own party who've been critical of them, and in some cases have backed some of their primary opponents. Are the Democrats who are opposed to the squad as dangerous, less dangerous, or more dangerous than those Republican billionaires you mentioned?
Well, I think they are as dangerous, and in many ways, I think they're tools of the billionaires. I mean, the bottom line is what we're looking at is legalized corruption. So you have to ask why. How is it that these rich folks can pour millions of dollars into say a Black district, and in a district where people don't even talk about Israel? And what's interesting is that they'll pour all this money in, and then they might not even mention Israel as an issue, or they will attack, keeping in mind Republican funded interests who will pour money into this race and say Congressperson X is not supporting Biden. He is not a real Democrat. So it's like they have no interest in democratic politics, yet they are inserting themselves, making it look like the member of the squad is, not being supportive of Biden. And what they do is they install another congressperson who is going to be more amenable to, a pro-Israel stance.
Do you think at this point, Professor Love, that Joe Biden is as staunchly pro-Israel as he was maybe a month ago? It seems as though, that latest incursion into Rafah, at least from this side of the pond, seems to have been, it wasn't the straw that broke the camel's back, but Biden appears to be a bit more strident than he was, again, like a month ago, about the kinds of things that Netanyahu is doing.
Yeah, I have noticed the change in his style, the change in his strategy, the change in the communications that the administration, are engaged in. I think that while there is a change, I don't necessarily think it's enough. I think in the end, Biden is Biden. He represents that generation, to be very honest, old white dudes who are, from.
I knew you were going to say something like that.
Yeah, who don't really care much about brown and Black people. And he has his attitudes. I mean, and it goes back a long time as far as, statements that he has reportedly made about people in that part of the world. So I don't think he really cares about what's going on. He, I think, is starting to change his approach. But, anybody, even those who don't understand politics or don't follow politics can see that it looks like he's throwing the game. I mean, you've had these protests going on. Obviously you're looking at, the college campuses around the country and around the world. But also, Biden is supposed to go speak at Morehouse on May 19th. Morehouse, the alma mater of Dr. King, he's going to go speak there on Malcolm X's birthday, no less. And the students are having an uproar. They don't want him to come.
Wait a minute. Let me stop you there for a second, Professor, because I saw a very strange dichotomy in terms of media coverage of Biden's trip to Morehouse. The New York Times ran an article that said that despite the protests that are going on all over the country, Morehouse and other HBCUs have been decidedly less strident. Yet the same day, the Washington Post runs an article that says that the HBCUs are in as much of an uproar as every other college campus. And I can't figure out who's right, or maybe I'm, getting old or something.
Yeah, well, I would, I did see that reporting as well. I have to ask, who is doing the reporting? I would imagine that there are not many Black folks doing the reporting on this. Mm-hmm. Also, I think you only have to look at what's going on in Atlanta with Cop City. And the students have connected the dots between Cop City and the increasing militarization of society and monitoring by the police, monitoring of Black communities. And they connect the dots with what is going on in Israel. And there are connections. Police officers, police officials have gone to Israel for training.
By the way, somebody over here got in deep trouble for alleging that some years back. An actress who said that the NYPD in particular was being trained by the Israeli police force. I don't know whether it was true or not, but I know that there was some controversy about it over here.
Yes, there was some controversy, and there is an exchange where, police officers here, they interact with police force over there. They share notes. There've been trips that have been made back and forth, and the students in Atlanta and other places, disproportionately Black, have been protesting against this. So, that's all part of the mix. And, I think we have to realize that, some people will say, well, Black folks shouldn't care about that. But, the fact of the matter is that the police dogs, the police robot dogs that are used in Israel, the company is right here in Philadelphia.
Really?
University of Pennsylvania campus.
Oh my God.
The tear gas that was used on Black Lives Matter protesters, also the same company that used that sent the tear gas to Israel to use on Palestinians. Company is based in Pennsylvania. So, these
people are connecting the dots. That's what you're saying.
Exactly.
Kids are connecting. Exactly. Let me tell you something, and I may get in trouble for saying this. I have always loved protests. I'm sorry, I can't help myself. I was part of the anti-Vietnam War protests. We fought a bunch of construction workers down on Wall Street back in the day. We're part of the anti-apartheid movement in the 80s. So I look at protests a lot more differently than I think most people do. And when we come back after this break, I do want to talk after the news and I think the sports and some few commercial breaks. I want to come back and talk about this new student activism because I find it to be extraordinary. I find it to be absolutely extraordinary. Our guest is Professor David A. Love. He's an assistant teaching professor of journalism and media studies at the Rutgers School of Communication and Information. This is the Tavis Smiley program. My name is Mark Riley, humbly sitting in for Tavis. We'll be back after the news.
Seeking the truth, speaking the truth. This is the Tavis Smiley Show.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know the United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time? Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Jury selection begins today in the bribery trial of Democratic New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez. His wife is also charged, but her trial doesn't start until July. The couple is accused of accepting $500,000 in cash, gold bars, a Mercedes-Benz, and home mortgage payments from businessmen who allegedly wanted the senator's influence to help their businesses in Egypt and Qatar. The U.S. Supreme Court may take up the issue of Louisiana's redrawn congressional district map. State Attorney General Liz Muriel filed an emergency stay application with the High Court to defend the map, which features a second majority black district. The filing asks the justices to pause previous rulings from lower courts requiring the state legislature to draw up a new map by June 3rd. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com, and I sell custom blinds designed for do-it-yourselfers. Unlike stock blinds offered at big box retailers, Blindster blinds are custom made for your windows and shipping is free. Don't hire an expensive pro. Do it yourself and save big at Blindster.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Bronny James has been cleared to participate in all activities at this week's NBA pre-draft camp in Chicago. LeBron's son got the good news late Sunday from the NBA's Fitness to Play panel. The decision allows the former USC player to compete in 5-on-5 scrimmages, which begin Tuesday. Personnel from all 30 NBA teams will be at the pre-draft camp to evaluate Bronny and 77 other prospects. Bronny has until May 29th to pull his name out of the draft and stay in college. The Atlanta Hawks will have the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. Atlanta won the NBA lottery yesterday, despite having only a 3% chance to win it. The NBA draft is June 26th in Brooklyn. The Dodgers lose by 4 at San Diego yesterday. It was the second time this season the Dodgers have been shut out. The Dodgers open a 3-game series tonight in San Francisco. The Dodgers still have the third best record in the major leagues at 27-15. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like your style, though.
Linking social justice and climate justice all year long. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
I feel occasional burning and stabbing in my hands as I age.
I sometimes feel numbness and tingling in my feet as I get older.
It's starting to get in the way of doing what I love.
At Nervive, we hear you and we can help. Nervive's clinically studied dose of alpha-lipoic acid reduces occasional nerve discomfort in as little as 7 days with continued daily use.
Now that I know, I'm taking control.
Try Nervive Nerve Relief and say yes to healthy nerves.
These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZzzQuil.
ZzzQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZzzQuil nights. Explore our products at ZzzQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Some days I cover up because of my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis.
Now I'm hitting the road with clearer skin thanks to Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. With Skyrizi, 3 out of 4 people achieved 90% clearer skin at 4 months. And Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKY-RIZZI to learn more.
Let's get back to more of Tavis Smiley right now.
Mark Riley sitting in for Tavis Smiley with our very special guest, Professor David A. Love. He's an assistant teaching professor of journalism and media studies at the Rutgers School of Communication and Information. Professor, I wanted to ask you, switching gears for a moment, a little bit about Donald Trump and Bob Menendez, both of whom now, Menendez's trial, I think, gets underway today. His wife, who's also accused criminally, is going to be going to trial a wee bit later. You work at Rutgers University. I think you maybe know, as I used to know, Menendez was an extraordinarily powerful politician at one time. He has not resigned his seat despite having been indicted and now being criminally charged and tried. What do you think is going on here with Menendez? Will he lose his iron grip on New Jersey Democrats?
Ultimately, I think he will, and that's because, he is, ultimately, I think, going to be too toxic and is going to be a distraction. I think people could point to good things that Senator Menendez might have done in the past. But I think ultimately, whether it's Democrats like Menendez or, Republicans like, Trump, this issue of corruption, I think, is something that people are really going to have to take a close look at because, to the extent that these politicians are taking money under the table, that, those are resources that don't go to us. I think that there's so much frustration these days because there's so many things that people want, whether it's reparations, whether it's, universal health care, you name it, certain things, it seems that there is no political will to actually give it to the people. But there's always a willingness to provide certain things to the rich and powerful. And I think it's all because of these politicians who are taking money under the table. And in the case of Menendez, allegedly taking money under the table. I think that to the extent that becomes a distraction and it starts to hurt the party as a whole, I think that's when, the party leadership have to take a step back and drop that person.
But, Professor, one thing I learned some time ago when I was invited, I don't know how this happened, to a picnic at the White House. And actually a picnic and then a Christmas party. I must have hit the lottery or something. I don't know how that happened, but be that as it may, the one thing I learned from both these events was how interdependent everybody who was there were on each other. You had the late Bob Novak standing next to Bill Bradley, standing next to this one, standing next to that one. And it dawned on me, it hit me like a ton of bricks at the time, that they all depend on each other. The media depends on the politicians for access. The lobbyists, who were there in force as well, depend on the politicians for access and to get their particular priorities seen to. And it dawned on me at the time, it's like, if anybody outside the Capital Beltway had any idea of the interdependence of all these people and that they are essentially locked out of the process, locked out of the process, whether you're a farmer in West Virginia or whether you're a poor person working for minimum wage in New York City, you're locked out. It's not like somebody is going to specific. Maybe there are people who come into politics who really do want to represent the interests of folks, but it seems like very quickly they get into a cycle where they end up having to raise money for the next election. And ever since I saw this with my own two eyes, I've been completely perplexed. I've spoken about it on the radio a few times back in the day, but eventually you feel like Sisyphus. You're rolling a rock up a hill and then it's just going to fall back down on you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And, as someone who has worked in media, who has worked in government and policy, I see it, and it is real. You are correct about that. I mean, I point to a study that came out a couple of years ago from Harvard Business School that talked about the American political industry and how it's essentially a duopoly that has created circumstances where the government is unable to solve America's basic challenges and problems because you have these special interests who are funneling money to politicians. And, I think that what you were saying about this, I guess like a symbiotic relationship with the politicians and the media, I think it's really a problem. And I always I tell my students that, journalism, and I'm sure you can relate to this, that, in its ideal form, back in, the early times in history, journalism was meant to hold people accountable, people in power accountable.
Yep.
It was a way for people to bear witness and shed light on the issues, the problems facing society. And when you have the reporters who, don't want to make the lawmakers angry by asking tricky questions, tough questions, then, who's really being served? A lot of journalists, they want to go to the holiday parties at the White House. They want to rub elbows with the rich and famous, and as a result, they're not really taking their duty, their role as public servants seriously.
Well, yeah, because they want access, just like the lobbyists want access. The media wants access. And, I could tell, there are a lot of stories I can tell, but I'm not gonna. There are a lot of people who you wouldn't think. I mean, I would see some of these people on Sunday chat shows, and they would be savaging somebody, savaging Bill Clinton, savaging this one, savaging that one, and they'd still line up if they were invited to a White House event. And I'm thinking to myself, well, wait a minute. You don't even sound like you like this person, but yet you go. Why do you go? You go because you want to maintain some level of access. And I have to, Professor, say, you must be one of the champions of critical thinking. And I don't think that critical thinking is taught often enough or in enough depth in schools, whether it's high school, college, whatever. I was very fortunate. I was taught critical thinking by my family before anything else. But I think when you start questioning these things, there are some conclusions you might come to that you might not otherwise come to. Or am I nuts?
Spot on. I mean, I tell my students that it is extremely important to be a critical thinker. And I think, unfortunately, it's something that is not taught. People think that education is all about learning dates and names and places. But, in the end, you want to understand how the world works, how systems of power work, and you want to be armed with all the tools possible in order to, understand what's going on, but to also solve problems that, are taking place now and that'll come in the future. I believe that a lot of people in power, they rely on an uneducated populace. And when I say uneducated, I mean, specifically lacking the critical thinking skills, because then, people are going to be willing to accept anything you tell them. And I think that's what we're seeing a lot of today.
Very true. We got to go to break, but we're going to keep you for the last segment, Professor David Love, because this has been a fascinating conversation for me. Being that I'm not in the States anymore, it's like refreshing to hear someone's take who has a progressive, relentlessly progressive stance and view of the issues. This is the Tavis Smiley program. My name is Mark Riley, sitting in for Tavis. Stay with us.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on!
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the fastest growing talk radio station in Southern California. Home to 50,000 watts and an audience reach of 12 million listeners. KBLA Talk 1580 is a pioneer for Black audio content, including our groundbreaking $2 million climate justice campaign and the most loyal, influential audience. According to an independent research study by the polling firm Aviterus, for the second consecutive year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the most trustworthy, reliable, and credible news source for Black audiences and beyond in Southern California. Let KBLA Talk 1580 power your advertising dollars. Our omni-channel custom marketing solutions are specifically tailored to connect with your ideal target audience. We leverage audio, podcasts, streaming, digital, social media, and local activations to get your message out to the Black community. Get in touch with our advertising team today at advertising@kbla1580.com. That's advertising@kbla1580.com. KBLA 1580. We've got your Black.
When you use Bounce dryer sheets and your clothes look amazing, it's the sheet. Less static in your life? Yeah, it's the sheet. Smelling fresher than ever? It's the sheet. Oh, so soft fabric? Ooh la la. It's the sheet. Less wrinkles on your clothes? You know it's the sheet. Bounce dryer sheets. More freshness, more softness. Less static, less wrinkles. It's the sheet.
Getting quality employees to fill positions in your company is essential, but finding those people can be a major hassle unless you use ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter makes finding quality people a breeze. ZipRecruiter's advanced technology identifies candidates with the right skills, sends you great matches, then you can easily invite them to apply. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. See for yourself. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/free to try ZipRecruiter for free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
He's rooting for everybody black. Everybody black. More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
It's 10 minutes before the hour, wherever you are, especially in LA. This is the Tavis Smiley program. My name is Mark Riley, and our guest is Professor David A. Love from Rutgers University. Professor, let's turn for a moment to Donald Trump. And let me ask you to be a prognosticator for a moment. Does he go back to the White House the way things look right now?
The way things look right now, yeah, I think so. I unfortunately, I think so, for a couple of reasons.
Yeah, please tell me, because it perplexes me that he, every time he does something, every time he goes to court about something, he uses it as a fundraising tool, and he makes millions doing this foolishness. Why are people so Velcro? These guys got more lives than John Gotti, for God's sake.
Yes, the system is broken, and somebody like Trump is able to benefit from it and manipulate it to his advantage. While I think there is still a chance that things can turn around, I think unfortunately the legal system does not appear, the court system does not appear willing or able to hold him accountable. In any other country, where the, former president tried to overthrow the country, that person would have been banished and would have been forced to flee.
Yeah.
And then also I think that Biden is making it very easy because he is not changing course to the extent that he should. And it's almost as if he's throwing the game and allowing Trump to just come right back in. And then add to that the third party candidates who I think can gain some traction because they are raising some very important issues.
You talking about Bobby Kennedy, Cornel West, who else?
Well, Well, Bobby Kennedy, I don't consider a legitimate candidate, but he's definitely gaining some traction. Yeah, also Cornel West, Jill Stein, and a few others.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting to see how much they are able to shake up the process, disrupt things. I personally think that, third-party candidates could harm the Democrats. I also think that democracy is important. And, if there are important issues out there that people need to address and they feel that the current parties aren't, really solving things, do what you got to do.
But now there are people who support Biden who say that for whatever sets of reasons, people are not attuned to the good things he's done over the past 4 years. He got the country through the COVID pandemic. He got inflation, although it's going back up, but for a time there, he had it under control. He took a good deal of money and put it toward situations where theoretically there'd be poor people who would benefit. Not good enough, huh? Well, wait a minute. Hold that thought for a second. I got to come back, but maybe it isn't good enough. Professor David Love will be telling us after this.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. they sent us straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA reminds you that when we fight, we win, and we don't black down. LA Community Action Network, or LA CAN, was formed in 1999 when 25 residents of downtown LA came together and acknowledged the problems that existed in their community and made a commitment to do something about those problems, to stand together, organize, and become a force in the community that demands change. Civil rights and preventing the criminalization of poverty are their core projects. In addition, they take on women's rights, the human right to housing, and healthy food access. LA CAN also has projects focused on economic development, civic participation, voter engagement, and community media. While downtown LA remains their home base, with a particular emphasis on the Skid Row community, in 2007, they expanded their housing and healthy food access work into South Central Los Angeles. LA CAN believes that power for low-income people and people of color is achieved through a large, active, and well-informed member base that utilizes a multitude of methods to advance their messages and goals. If you'd like to join the Los Angeles Community Action Network and organize people to fight back against oppression, please visit cangress.org. That's cangress.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
We have a couple of minutes left with our very special guest, Professor David Love from Rutgers University. This is the Tavis Smiley program. My name is Mark Riley. Professor, you said you think that Donald Trump is going to win this election. The last time he won in 2016, it actually made me physically ill. But what could people expect? I mean, this is a guy who, by the way, said he wanted to do a rap concert of people, I guess, who support him. I don't know if it ever jumped off or ever got off the ground, but he seems to be saying that he's making inroads in the Black community. Is he?
I think on the margins, maybe he might pick up a few Black votes here and there. I think a lot of that is smoke and mirrors. I don't see Black people supporting him in significant numbers. I could be wrong, but I also think that the real issue is that a lot of Black folks probably just won't show up on election day because they don't see their concerns being addressed. I think that could be the real issue that could contribute to a Trump win. And, not just Black voters, but, other folks in the base, particularly those who, the majority of whom do not agree with the genocide going on in Gaza, who will decide to stay home. I think that ultimately is an issue, and Biden needs to sit down and talk with LBJ for a minute and hopefully course correct, although I think in some ways it might be a little late.
I was going to ask you about that. Is it too late? Is there still time for Joe Biden to pull this off?
I think anything is possible. I think if if he moved for a Palestinian state, if he
then maybe.
cut off.
Listen, I got to leave it there. Unfortunately, we're out of time. We got what's called a hard stop. But Professor David Love, I'd love to talk to you again. If I'm blessed to do this show again, I'd love to have you back, huh?
I would enjoy that a lot. It's been great.
All right. You take care. And thanks for being with us. We have to take a break. When we come back, former New York Governor David Paterson.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Jury selection begins today in the bribery trial of Democratic New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez. His wife is also charged, but her trial doesn't start until July. The couple is accused of accepting $500,000 in cash, gold bars, a Mercedes-Benz, and home mortgage payments from businessmen who allegedly wanted the senator's influence to help their businesses in Egypt and Qatar. The U.S. Supreme Court may take up the issue of Louisiana's redrawn congressional district map. State Attorney General Liz Murill filed an emergency stay application with the High Court to defend the map, which features a second majority black district. The filing asks the justices to pause previous rulings from lower courts requiring the state legislature to draw up a new map by June 3rd. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com, and I sell custom blinds designed for do-it-yourselfers. Unlike stock blinds offered at big box retailers, Blindster blinds are custom made for your windows and shipping is free. Don't hire an expensive pro. Do it yourself and save big at Blindster.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Bronny James has been cleared to participate in all activities at this week's NBA pre-draft camp in Chicago. LeBron's son got the good news late Sunday from the NBA's Fitness to Play panel. The decision allows the former USC player to compete in 5-on-5 scrimmages, which begin Tuesday. Personnel from all 30 NBA teams will be at the pre-draft camp to evaluate Bronny and 77 other prospects. Bronny has until May 29th to pull his name out of the draft and stay in college. The Atlanta Hawks will have the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. Atlanta won the NBA lottery yesterday, despite having only a 3% chance to win it. The NBA draft is June 26th in Brooklyn. The Dodgers lose by 4 at San Diego yesterday. It was the second time this season the Dodgers have been shut out. The Dodgers open a 3-game series tonight in San Francisco. The Dodgers still have the third best record in the major leagues at 27-15. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, it's Tavis Smiley. First, thank you for your support of KBLA Talk 1580. We deeply appreciate you. So, I get asked all the time, Tavis, when are you going to bring back that State of the Black Union symposium you used to do? You know the one where you had all those black intellectuals on stage every year and everybody watched all day live on C-SPAN? Yeah, I know the one. Let's bring them back. Well, I am pleased to tell you that if you go to KBLA1580.com right now, you can sign up to be in the audience here in Los Angeles when we go back live on C-SPAN with a stage full of black thinkers and influencers for a historic conversation. America has never seen a stage full of black folk talking about the urgency of now. Climate justice, climate equity, climate resilience. It's going down Tuesday, June 18th, 4 to 7 p.m. at the California Science Center in Exposition Park. Admission is free, but you must register at KBLA1580.com. Once we reach capacity, you'll have to watch us on C-SPAN. But if you want to be in the room when we go live from Los Angeles, Tuesday, June 18th, head to KBLA1580.com right now to reserve your seat. Caring about the climate, caring about the community. With KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. I believe up there. Hey!
Yeah, I'm up at Brooklyn. Now I'm down in Tribeca, right next to the Narrow. But I'll be here forever. I'm the new Sinatra.
God, I love
since I made it here, I can make it anywhere.
4 minutes past the hour. This is the Tavis Smiley program. My name is Mark Riley, sitting in for Tavis. And my wife kept trying to warn me when our next guest and I began to have a conversation. You can't make it too inside baseball because you guys have known each other forever. I consider him to be a dear friend, a person who helped me in times of trouble, the former governor of the state of New York, and I can't help but call him Governor David Paterson. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, Mark, and we've done radio together back on WLIB. Then we did radio on the BBC, so this is a new frontier for us.
Yes, absolutely. I gotta ask you because I saw an article about this. You're taking up the guitar, eh?
During the pandemic, I was walking in the park with my wife, and I said to her, we're going to spend a lot more time with each other than normal. So we probably need to have some individual projects that we work on. And she told me in Manhattan, there is this guy who put up all these signs and it says, Dan Smith will teach you guitar. So I went and played with him for about a month. And then one day the Uber went past his building and I called him. I said, could you come downstairs? Because I don't think I can recognize your building. And he said he would do it. But then the Uber driver felt bad about it. So he walked me back to the building. And when Dan Smith came out, the Uber driver said to him, oh, before you guys go inside, would you take a picture of me and the governor? So my cover got blown again.
Listen, it's been a few years since you were governor. And because I know some of the intricacies of what took place back then, I have to ask you, did you feel hard done by the fact that you did not end up running for that full term?
I absolutely did. And the reason was because none of the charges against me ever stuck. I was cleared of all of these instigated situations that I wound up in. And I felt that it was just deliberately done to keep me from running for office. But you know what they say, what goes around comes around. And and they say something about karma that I won't repeat, but in the past few years, I felt very vindicated. And I did make one decision, Mark, which I'm so glad I got this right. When I first came out, I thought about writing a book. But if I had written a book right after I came out, I think it would have been filled with vindictiveness and settling scores and really not what I've been about in my career. So I waited until 2018 to write the book, and then I could view some of the things that happened to me with a sense of humor. And so looking back on it now, I don't have the same agitation that I did at the time.
Agitation? What about animus? You got any animus?
Animus, agitation, anger. I mean, some of the things that some of the things that happened were just outrageous. And
they smeared some very good people, including you.
Yeah. And it's very hard to go through that. And it's very hard to, one time during the period where I was being investigated, I was coming back from my lawyer's office, and my wife had gone out, and we used to drive in the back part of my building, because if we drove in the front, all the media would come out and try to harass me. So I go up to my apartment, and I don't turn the lights on because I don't want them to know that I was there. Then my wife told me she had left food in the microwave. When I opened the microwave, I would look to see if they could see the light from outside the window. And then I realized this has totally gotten in my head. I turned on every light in the apartment, walked out on the terrace, and waved to all of them. I went to a church service at the current House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, invited me to. And he walked me back to the car after the church service, and the media said, "Did you pray for yourself today?" And I said to them, "No, I prayed for you."
Oh, God. Let me ask you, and I don't want to spend too much time about that period, but what do you consider to be your greatest accomplishment as governor of the state of New York?
I think what I would consider the greatest accomplishment would have been the passage of that revoked the Rockefeller drug laws, and really treating drug abuse as a disease as opposed to a crime. And I would say that's the thing I was most proud of. I also did about 45 pardons of people who were prosecuted in ways that they probably shouldn't have been. And then, and unfortunately, it was the Obama Justice Department that was trying to throw them out of the country. So, for instance, there was a woman who was raised in Peru. She was born in Peru. She moved to the United States when she was 5 years old. She passed a bad check when she was 19, and she got convicted of a misdemeanor. They were actually going to put this woman out of the country, but if I pardoned her, now there's no crime to build on. And I did it in about 45 cases. And in all 45, none of those individuals has had any scrapes with the law since then.
Fantastic. Our guest is former New York Governor David Paterson. I got to say, it pains me to say former, but he is the former governor of New York. We're going to take a very quick break, 10 minutes past the hour. Tavis Smiley program. My name is Mark Riley.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Hey y'all, Mona Swain here from Target's new YouTube series, My Cart is Full, where we feature Black founders and creators highlighting their connection to our community. As an actor and content creator, I love using my voice to inspire young Black women who look like me. When it comes to feeding my shine, seeing myself reflected in Black-owned and founded products at Target brings me joy. Together, we are Black Beyond Measure. Learn more at target.com/Black Beyond Measure.
Cookie wants to be a professional wrestler.
I'm Cookie Serratos and I'm 11 years old.
She also wants to win all the medals. That's why Cookie and her family make every day count, squeezing out her best with Go-Go Squeeze.
Okay, Cookie, let's break for a Go-Go Squeeze.
Go-Go Squeeze Fruit on the Go pouches are a nutritious snack made from 100% fruit with no sugar added.
Call Cookie!
Because when you nurture your kids, you squeeze out the best in them. Squeeze out the best with Go-Go Squeeze. Not a low-calorie food. Products range from 11 to 13 grams of sugar and 60 to 70 calories per serving.
When you use Bounce dryer sheets and your clothes look amazing, it's the sheet. Less static in your life? Yeah, it's the sheet. Smelling fresher than ever? It's the sheet. Oh, so soft fabric? Ooh la la. It's the sheet. Less wrinkles on your clothes? You know it's the sheet. Bounce dryer sheets. More freshness, more softness. Less static, less wrinkles. It's the sheet.
Getting quality employees to fill positions in your company is essential, but finding those people can be a major hassle unless you use ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter makes finding quality people a breeze. ZipRecruiter's advanced technology identifies candidates with the right skills, sends you great matches, then you can easily invite them to apply. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. See for yourself. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/free to try ZipRecruiter for free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
I feel occasional burning and stabbing in my hands as I age.
I sometimes feel numbness and tingling in my feet as I get older.
It's starting to get in the way of doing what I love.
At Nervive, we hear you and we can help. Nervive's clinically studied dose of alpha-lipoic acid reduces occasional nerve discomfort in as little as 7 days with continued daily use.
Now that I know, I'm taking control.
Try Nervive Nerve Relief and say yes to healthy nerves.
These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZQuil.
ZQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZQuil nights. Explore our products at ZQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
14 minutes past the hour. Glad you're with us. I'm sitting in for Tavis Smiley. My name is Mark Riley with my very special guest, former New York Governor David Paterson. Governor, you've taken a couple of controversial positions. One is the fact that the Jewish community backed Dr. Martin Luther King in his protests. I think the number I saw was 65% of the white support that Dr. King had was Jewish. And you think that Black folks ought to return the favor now in 2024. Why do you think so?
Well, I thought so because in this particular situation, it was an attack on Israel by Hamas. And Hamas's stated goal is to destroy the state of Israel. Now, the Ku Klux Klan's stated goal was to destroy Black people who they participated in bringing here from Africa, their ancestors. And I thought, there are a lot of problems in the Middle East, and the Palestinians always seem to get the brunt of it. But the Palestinians themselves voted to make Hamas their government. And so unless somebody is saying in Gaza that the election was stolen, they made that choice themselves and haven't indicated any support for Israel. Now, the human tragedy of people dying and Israel attacking a few places that they probably shouldn't have, and probably what they should have done was to use their strong military force immediately, as soon as they got attacked, attack back before anyone can say anything to you. But I thought it was profound that 65 nations from the UN, within an hour of the attacks, or within an hour when we heard about it, wrote press releases urging Israel to show restraint. And in my opinion, that's like asking someone whose house gets broken into and they get their gun, telling them to put it away and go negotiate with the people who are robbing your house. Now, I'm not trying to make the situation sound that simple. There are a lot of problems in the Middle East, and I would say probably 40% of them are because that Bibi Netanyahu is still in power. I think there are other ways to govern than the way he has. But I was just a little surprised that there was so much condemnation. And by the way, not that much condemnation from the Black community, but condemnation from other sources where I think that got some support in the community. But I wasn't aiming the remarks specifically to the Black community, because our relationship with the Jewish community has had its issues back and forth, but in the last few years seems to have gone pretty well.
Now, let me ask you this. There are protests on college campuses all over America. And to me, it's kind of reminiscent, no matter what they're protesting or who they're advocating for, it reminds me of the Vietnam protests that I participated in back when dinosaurs roamed the earth. I'm wondering, what do you say to those protesters? Are they wrong?
I think that the protesters have a lot of sympathy for what's going on. They deplore violence, very much like in the Vietnam War. And interestingly enough, if we look back, the protesters in the Vietnam War really were the beginning of America changing its policy and inevitably getting out of Vietnam before they were thrown out of Vietnam. So the protesters played a major role there. I think these protesters are sincere, but I don't know that they have really embraced what the cause is. And,
what do you mean by that? What is the cause?
I think that the cause would be anti-violence, that nobody should be violent, and anyone who is violent should be condemned. That's what I think the cause is. And I think that's how they feel. Mm-hmm. But they just don't seem to recognize this latest iteration of violence was not started by Israel.
No, that's very true. We all, I think, understand or at least acknowledge that. But let me ask you this. Their stated intention, the Israelis, is to eliminate Hamas. Yet they know that there are people at the top of Hamas who are living in other countries, Qatar in particular, who are negotiating the release of the Israeli hostages. How come the Israelis can't go to the Qataris and say, listen, give us this guy?
The reason I can't answer that question is that I agree with you. Why don't they go over there? They've been a little restrained in the effort to get some of their own people out of the type of custody that they're in right now. And that's what I was sort of alluding to before when I was talking about the leadership or lack of leadership from Netanyahu, who I think is a thorn in the negotiations themselves. And I think even the families of the hostages are starting to realize that. And I think a lot of the Israeli leadership understands that. But he is the president right now, and I don't mind what he said right after the attack or what he wanted to do. But we're coming up on 8 months of that now. It would seem to me that a different policy would be in order to try to get those people, the hostages who weren't harming anyone, out of bondage.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, no one wants to see hostages taken on any level. But let me ask you another question. And this is it's a question. I don't know what the facts are, but I have seen more than one media report, at least over here in the UK, that alleges that Netanyahu knew and looked the other way as the Qataris provided funding for Hamas prior to October 7th, way prior to October 7th. Do you think there's any truth in that? Did Netanyahu look the other way while the Qataris actually bankrolled Hamas?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I think what I would be willing to say is there is plenty of evidence that President Franklin Delano Roosevelt knew that the attack at Pearl Harbor was coming. And the reason he didn't do anything about it is he wanted the strongest sense of support when the United States entered the war. He did not want to enter the war when there was still a debate in this country as to whether or not we should or shouldn't have. So he didn't allow them to go and bomb Pearl Harbor, but he knew they were going to do it. And he knew that the attack and the death toll and the just horror of that attack would just about turn every American into thinking we should go in there. If Netanyahu did the same thing, it's, I think, a little bit different, because in this situation, the attacks were very much in the heart of Israel itself. It wasn't like a neighboring district or something like that. Mm-hmm. And you just don't want to play games with other people's lives, whoever you are as a leader. But sometimes, in certain circumstances, a leader may have to forego, unfortunately, life and liberty for some individuals for what would be a bigger cause, which in the case I cited was winning World War II.
So you think then that Netanyahu may well have known, but didn't act on it?
I think that is a strong possibility.
But what does that say to the Israeli people, though? I mean, they elected this guy, and the guy seems to have been, and you know, the conventional media wisdom is that Hamas and Netanyahu had in common seeing a two-state solution as anathema. Think that's true?
Well, I think that in this particular situation, the difference, if Netanyahu knew that, is that he was putting his own population at risk. President Roosevelt was not the president of Pearl Harbor and that whole area. So it was a little more distant and easier for him to do. You're right. I mean, these are his citizens. His oath is to protect them. But there have been a number of military conflicts through history where that occurred, where someone allowed someone else to look like they're gaining an advantage when what they were really doing was building to support to come after them.
Interesting. Let me ask you another question, because you, I don't know if it was an op-ed or it was when you were on the radio in New York, but I think it might have been an op-ed. You talked about border security, which is kind of, I think maybe some people who know you were kind of surprised at the position you took. Tell us what you feel about border security, and specifically what you would have done if you were governor when Texas Governor Ken Paxton started sending migrants to New York.
I think because of the way the Texas governor acts, I would probably have done what Mayor Eric Adams did, which was try to accommodate it, because sending them back would just put them in egregious circumstances. And I think that I would have probably followed him. What I don't understand is how the federal government would allow the immigrants to come into this country and not provide the resources to protect them. We now have 280,000 immigrants in New York City that we didn't have 14 months ago. And how the mayor has prevented just mayhem in the streets and bands of homeless people wandering through neighborhoods trying to get help and trying to get services, I think is spectacular. But it makes me wonder what the overall federal policy is about, about border security. And the way the migrant situation was handled, there wasn't any real examination of the people coming across the border. I liked the type of program that they had under President Obama when Vice President Biden was in that administration. I don't know why he turned around at this point and basically just opened the doors, particularly at a time when all of the agencies that are monitoring terrorist threats are saying that this is an opening for individuals that wouldn't mean any of us well, whether we are, what other color we are, whether religion we are. They would really like to get a second chance to have a repeat of something like September 11th.
What do you think can be done, ought to be done? Is there, in your mind, a differentiation between, quote, legal migrants and illegal migrants?
Well, I think that if people want to come to this country, it offers a great deal. It sometimes doesn't offer as much as they think that it does, but they still would like to come here. I think there's a process that, has pretty much worked. It was very much shut down by President Trump, who just likes to make hay over immigrants, of which his family were some of them years ago, and decided not to do anything about it. I applaud that President Biden wanted to take the situation on and not act as ruthlessly as President Trump did, but he hasn't been able to get through Congress some of the legislation that would provide for a process for people to come here and a place for them to stay while they're being processed.
Our guest is former New York Governor David Paterson. When we come back after this break, I want to ask you a little bit about some of the New York politicians. I don't want to play too much inside baseball here, but I want to talk about Kathy Hochul. I want to talk a little bit about Eric Adams, who you referenced a bit earlier, and who you have in the race between Trump and Biden. Stay with us. This is the Tavis Smiley program. My name is Mark Riley, and it is indeed an honor to be here.
I feel like freedom.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know the United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time? Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. A Virginia school board has voted to restore Confederate names to two of its schools. The Shenandoah County Board had voted in 2020 to remove the names of Confederate Generals Stonewall Jackson and Robert E. Lee from the local schools to affirm the district's commitment to an inclusive school environment. During a meeting recently, the school board voted to restore the names, saying the change was wrongly done and lacked public input. A new study suggests a master's degree might not be a worthwhile investment. New analysis by the Foundation for Research on Equal Opportunities says that over 40% of master's degrees aren't financially worth getting. The study looks at career earnings at graduation and a decade later while adjusting for factors such as dropout rate. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com, and I sell custom blinds designed for do-it-yourselfers. Unlike stock blinds offered at big box retailers, Blindster blinds are custom made for your windows and shipping is free. Don't hire an expensive pro. Do it yourself and save big at Blindster.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Bronny James has been cleared to participate in all activities at this week's NBA pre-draft camp in Chicago. LeBron's son got the good news late Sunday from the NBA's Fitness to Play panel. The decision allows the former USC player to compete in 5-on-5 scrimmages, which begin Tuesday. Personnel from all 30 NBA teams will be at the pre-draft camp to evaluate Bronny and 77 other prospects. Bronny has until May 29th to pull his name out of the draft and stay in college. The Atlanta Hawks will have the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. Atlanta won the NBA lottery yesterday, despite having only a 3% chance to win it. The NBA draft is June 26th in Brooklyn. The Dodgers lose by 4 at San Diego yesterday. It was the second time this season the Dodgers have been shut out. The Dodgers open a 3-game series tonight in San Francisco. The Dodgers still have the 3rd best record in the major leagues at 27-15. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
At Lowe's, save big every day when you buy in bulk. Save 10% when you buy 20 or more select self-leveling underlayment, because Lowe's knows pros. Selection varies by location while supplies last. Discount taken at time of purchase. See sales associate for details.
Hey, John, why so glum? I just got let go. The company's downsizing. This is the 3rd time in the last 2 years. I'm done with this.
Have you thought about My Computer Career? I've heard they can train you for a career in IT in just a few months, including cybersecurity and the basics of AI. And you don't need prior training or experience. Now that's a recession-resistant career.
Wow, thanks. I'll check them out.
Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation. mycomputercareer.edu. Financial aid is available for qualified students, including the GI Bill.
We used to argue about whose turn it was to clean the gutters, but then I had Leaf Filter gutter protection installed.
Wait, I told you Leaf Filter had free inspections and estimates and a lifetime guarantee.
Meaning we never have to argue about whose turn it is to clean the gutters again.
But I visited leaffilter.com/beacon first.
No, I did.
It doesn't matter who. Visit leaffilter.com/beacon to schedule your free gutter inspection and get up to 30% off today.
See representative for warranty details. Promotion is 20% off plus a 10% senior or military discount. 1 discount per household.
I'm Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I learned about atrial fibrillation the hard way. My symptoms would come and go. Shortness of breath, fatigue. I kept going. Then I got so lightheaded, I couldn't. My doctor said I have AFib, so I'm about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. Other symptoms, irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain can come and go, but the risk of stroke stays. If you have symptoms, tell a doctor. Visit notimetowait.com.
Sponsored by Bristol Myers Squibb and
My
Foster.
mom has taken up going to the park to practice yoga.
My dad's going to a club, but not a book club, a salsa club.
Finding new hobbies comes with age.
My mom has started getting lost and not knowing where she's going.
Becoming lost or disoriented doesn't. Confusion with time or place may be a sign of Alzheimer's. An early diagnosis can help improve the quality of life for your loved one. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Did you know that feeling sluggish or weighed down could be a sign that your digestive system isn't working at its best? Taking Metamucil every day can help. Metamucil fiber powders help promote your daily digestive health using a plant-based fiber called psyllium. The gelling action of this special fiber traps and removes waste, so you can feel lighter and more energetic. Metamucil, promoting digestive health for a better you. Learn more at metamucil.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
I'm Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I learned about atrial fibrillation the hard way. My symptoms would come and go: shortness of breath, fatigue. I kept going. Then I got so lightheaded, I couldn't. My doctor said I have AFib, so I'm about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. Other symptoms: irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain can come and go, but the risk of stroke stays. If you have symptoms, tell a doctor. Visit notimetowait.com.
Sponsored by Bristol Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Made fresh daily in the Mert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Mark Riley sitting in for Tavis Smiley with our very special guest, former New York Governor David Paterson. Governor Paterson, let me ask you about Kathy Hochul, the woman who is now the governor of the state of New York. What kind of job do you think she's done?
Well, I think Governor Hochul has done a pretty good job. I think in the very beginning, she had some struggles. She wanted to appoint a judge to the Court of Appeals, and the legislature wouldn't let her do it. And she had a weapon that she could have used, but she didn't, which was to hold up the legislative pay raise. Now, when I was in the legislature, we would do anything to get a pay raise, and so, just about anything. And the governors really took advantage of it and really, let us have it sometimes. And I was a little surprised that she didn't exercise that option. And but since that time, she's really grown into the position. And she did one thing that was, I think, very thoughtful, and not to be critical of the other elected official involved here. But when the migrants started coming in to New York, and particularly into the city, she did not speak out about it publicly. She said she was working to try to help, and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Whereas Mayor Adams was very honest, brutally honest, and he let the White House know what he thought of all these migrants being dumped into New York City without any resources to help to place them or to find opportunity for them. And I think Governor Hochul's not getting involved in any acrimony with the White House worked to her advantage, because eventually the president has now, excised his ability to send some resources to the state, and they'll be administered that way. Meanwhile, Mayor Adams got kicked off the president's reelection committee and was kind of ignored on a couple of occasions when the president came to New York. I still think what Mayor Adams did was right, and it was honest. And I think that it was very cavalier and in my opinion, callow of the White House to take an action against him when all he did was stick up for the people of his state. But Governor Hochul, on the other hand, laid the foundation to make requests that were granted. So here's an example of two different approaches taken by two leaders, one of a state and one of a city, that makes an interesting study when you think about perhaps what you would have done in the same situation.
What do you think New York politicians, particularly New York Democrats, are feeling about Joe Biden? We just had a guest on, David Love, professor at Rutgers, who said he thinks Trump is going to win straight up. How about you?
I think if the election will hold tomorrow, that's a very realistic possibility. Trump has probably been the most productive defendant there's ever been in the history of jurisprudence in this country, because the more he gets attacked, the more his favorable numbers go up. And to reverse that, there's going to have to be, some difference in how the President Biden is presenting himself. And he's got to stop thinking that this whole election's about Michigan and Minnesota. Those are only two states. And he seems to be tailoring his policies toward trying to maintain the population of Islamic people who voted for him in 2020 and might not vote for him in 2024. I think it's kind of a short range and incomplete way to set up a presidential campaign. And I would like to remind the president that Walter Mondale won the state of Minnesota in 1984 and lost every other state because, and so you've got to be thinking of the whole country and how people are feeling right now. And you're finding Trump getting numbers even in black males, 20%. And that there is some feeling that he would be the best person to run the country at the time. Believe me, I could think of about 200 million people who I would put in front of him to run the country at this time. But that's what the polls are showing.
Do you think that those black males, that 20%, know anything about Donald Trump's history, about the fact that he had to sign not one, but 2 consent decrees because he and his father discriminated against black people in the renting of apartments in Trump Village? This goes back to what, 1975?
And there's a belief that his father attended Ku Klux Klan meetings in the 40s.
I heard about that, yeah.
Yeah. And in the state of Georgia, it's very interesting because Trump lost the state of Georgia, but he got 18% of the black males to vote for him in that race, a race that he lost. And what the Trump campaign did was they put out a lot of literature about custody for fathers and about the mistreatment of men in the court system and that kind of thing, which played right into these the hands of these gentlemen who decided to vote for him back in 2020, when in fact, all of the other things that he had done were not in the interest or just not in the interest of the black community, male or female. And I think that the Biden campaign is apparently kind of sitting here allowing this to happen and not picking the issues that I think would reignite the type of campaign that he ran in 2020 and have the black vote where it was 4 years ago.
Do you think that people, white, black, or whoever, believe that he's too old? I mean, again, I'm across the pond, but the footage I see of him is of a man who just looks tired. Does that hurt?
Unfortunately, it does. And in 2020, he had the advantage that, people couldn't go out and campaign because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so he would just come on and make comments. They called it his basement strategy, but it won and it worked. And it worked so well that toward the very end of the campaign, President Trump himself tried to emulate it to try to get those votes back. One thing that was interesting about the 2020 campaign, because my right-wing conservative colleagues in the industry think that that Trump is way ahead and Trump is going to win and that kind of thing, and they all say Biden's afraid to debate him. Well, Biden wasn't afraid to debate him in 2020. Why would he be afraid to debate him now? In addition, in that 2020 debate, Biden, I don't know what they must have, shown him pictures of people being brutalized or something before he went into the debate, he was on Trump so hard that Trump didn't know what to do with him in that debate. In either of the two debates, that's what happened. So if I were Biden, and if he's able to perform as well now as he did in 2020, if I were him, I'd get out there and really start working, because I think there is a perception that we had people in Iran, not in Iran, in Afghanistan, where we were trying to get our people out before it was taken over by the Taliban, and that Biden sat there and let a lot of people lose their lives or have problems. Then we have some other conflicts where we've kind of stood back and just been more isolationist than I think a lot of Americans would like. And it's sort of culminating with this situation in Israel now, where Biden held back the arms that he was going to give to the Israelis. And I think that in a lot of quarters in this country, not the ones that I'm in, but in a lot of quarters in this country, it demonstrates what appears to be weakness and an inability to find a solution to problems, and puts our allies on notice that they don't 100% know how much they can trust us.
Our guest is former New York Governor David Paterson. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about Trump and about whether or not he has any vulnerability with women. This is the Tavis Smiley program. My name is Mark Riley.
Unapologetically progressive, unapologetically black. You're tapped into Tavis Smiley.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the fastest growing talk radio station in Southern California. Home to 50,000 watts and an audience reach of 12 million listeners. KBLA Talk 1580 is a pioneer for Black audio content, including our groundbreaking $2 million climate justice campaign and the most loyal, influential audience. According to an independent research study by the polling firm Aviterus, for the second consecutive year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the most trustworthy, reliable, and credible news source for Black audiences and beyond in Southern California. Let KBLA Talk 1580 power your advertising dollars. Our omni-channel custom marketing solutions are specifically tailored to connect with your ideal target audience. We leverage audio, podcasts, streaming, digital, social media, and local activations to get your message out to the Black community. Get in touch with our advertising team today at advertising@KBLA1580.com. That's advertising@KBLA1580.com. KBLA 1580. We've got your Black.
I'm getting vaccinated with Prevnar 20, a Pfizer vaccine.
So am I, because I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine. It can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
Well, almost Tavis Smiley. My name is Mark Riley, sitting in for Tavis. And coming up in our final hour, we're going to be talking with Cheryl Brown Henderson, founding president of the Brown Foundation for Educational Equity, whose father, Oliver Brown, was one of the plaintiffs in the Brown versus Board of Education decision. And that's coming up on 70 years. We'll also be talking with Michael Meltsner. He's the Matthews Distinguished University Professor of Law Emeritus and retired law professor from Northeastern University. Right now, former Governor David Paterson is our guest. Is there a possibility that Joe Biden might be helped out by the ire that women feel about the fact that he, Donald Trump, appointed a Supreme Court that gutted Brown versus Board of Brown? God, I'm losing my mind here. Roe v. Wade.
Yes, I think that's the number one place. If I were running President Biden's campaign, that I would go after. That because Donald Trump not only was happy to see the Roe v. Wade case thrown out, but he's also happy that a lot of the states have gotten it to the point where you can't take the morning after pill. You can't do anything, other than use protection when you're having sex. And if there's any reason that the woman's health is in jeopardy, the fetus's health is in jeopardy, this decision made just about a year ago is really going to cause a lot of problems. And not only that, but believe me, conservatives get pregnant just as much as liberals do. And when they do, for the most part, they have more opportunities and ways to get it worked out, which are less dangerous and less humiliating than the position they're putting their political adversaries in over an issue which I think is a moral issue, each person and how they reconcile this with God, as opposed to trying to please Donald Trump.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's also interesting to me that this phenomenon of his holding press conferences, news conferences, rallies, whatever, and assailing the various criminal prosecutions he's facing, and every time he does it, he raises millions of dollars. And by the way, raises millions of dollars that I think the donors are not absolutely certain will go for the purpose that he tells them. How does he do it?
Well, this is why he's on trial, because he always found these ways. They say now that I think it's one of the states, it might be Illinois or something, that they're rechecking taxes that he filed there, that he took a tax credit twice. In other words, he listed a loss twice in different parts of the tax return, which gave him twice the money than he should have gotten over this situation. And he does things like that. Let me just tell you this real quickly, Mark. When I become governor, about the third day that I'm governor, I'm in my office, it's 8 o'clock in the morning, and I get this phone call from Trump. And he is calling to applaud the fact that my wife and I got up and just said we'd been separated at a certain period of time in our marriage. Though we were separated, neither one of us left the home because we didn't want to subject our children to the problems we were having with each other. We were able to work it out. We got back together and we get up and we reveal this. So Trump calls up to tell me what a great thing this was. I'm thanking him, thank you, Donald, that kind of thing. And then he tells me he wants to build this club on Jones Beach in Long Island. And for those of you in California, Jones Beach in Long Island is just like a beach in California. it doesn't have the foundation to build any kind of a facility right on the beach. When I told Trump this, he said, "Oh no, you have those government people. We're builders. We know how to do this." And sure enough, when Hurricane Sandy came, it was the first thing. It was the first thing that got blown down. The whole frame, because he'd already built the frame. He wanted us to approve it, and the frame wound up in the middle of the ocean. And that's who he is. So what I'm sort of
we got to take a quick break. I hate to cut you off, Governor,
Sure.
because it's so much fun talking to you. But we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with former Governor David Paterson.
Unapologetically progressive, unapologetically black. You're tapped into Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. Benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminding you that we keep us safe. Pro Football Hall of Famer and urban peace pioneer Jim Brown believed in just that. So he founded the Amera I Can Foundation for Social Change in 1988, focusing on at-risk and high-risk youth in underserved schools and juvenile detention facilities, as well as adult incarceration and reentry initiatives. The core of the Amera I Can program is its 15-chapter life skills curriculum. Mastery of these skills allows individuals to meet their academic potential, conform their behavior to acceptable societal standards, and improve the quality of their lives by equipping them with what they need to confidently and successfully contribute to society. Today, the foundation is led by its president, Monique Brown, who has been actively involved in the organization for more than 25 years. The Amera I Can Foundation continues its work in memory of its founder, actor, philanthropist, and NFL legend Jim Brown. To get involved or make a donation, please visit AmeriICanCommunity.partners. That's AmeriICanCommunity.partners. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Ew, gotta get rid of this old Backstreet Boys t-shirt.
Tell me why.
Because it stinks, boys.
Tell me why.
I've washed it so many times, but the odor won't come out.
Tell me why.
No, you tell me why I can't get rid of this odor.
Have you tried Downy Rinse and Refresh? It doesn't just cover up odors, it helps remove them.
Wow, it worked, guys.
Yeah.
Downy Rinse and Refresh removes more odor in one wash than the leading value detergent in 3 washes. Find it wherever you buy laundry products.
Sounds different, huh? This is Tavis Smiley.
We're almost out of time with former New York Governor David Paterson. And in the minute or so we have left, I got to ask you the following question. Have you ever thought about getting back in the game, in the political game? Your dad was one of the most distinguished politicians I've ever had the pleasure of interviewing. And I just wonder if you don't get that hunger every now and then to get back in it.
You know, I was at celebrating Mother's Day with a bunch of family members and friends yesterday, and people kept asking me. They didn't want me to just get back in politics. They just said they didn't like Trump or Biden. They wanted me to run for president. I told them, it takes a little more money than the Paterson family has to raise that kind of money. I do think from time to time how I would handle things if I was in a particular situation, but I think I would rather be an elder and one who offers advice when requested to those who are managing now. But I would say what is disturbing for us as Black people is, just very quickly, if you threw a frog in a boiling hot pan of water, the frog would immediately jump out. But if you put the frog in lukewarm water and then progressively let it get hotter and hotter and hotter, the frog doesn't know that it's about to die. And I think that's what's happening to us very slowly and very cautiously.
I got it, Governor. I got
a new reconstruction.
Thanks so much for being with us. When we come back on the other side, we have got Cheryl Brown Henderson and Michael Meltsner.
Thank you, Mark.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. A Virginia school board has voted to restore Confederate names to 2 of its schools. The Shenandoah County Board had voted in 2020 to remove the names of Confederate Generals Stonewall Jackson and Robert E. Lee from the local schools to affirm the district's commitment to an inclusive school environment. During a meeting recently, the school board voted to restore the names, saying the change was wrongly done and lacked public input. A new study suggests a master's degree might not be a worthwhile investment. New analysis by the Foundation for Research on Equal Opportunities says that over 40% of master's degrees aren't financially worth getting. The study looks at career earnings at graduation and a decade later, while adjusting for factors such as dropout rate. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com, and I sell custom blinds designed for do-it-yourselfers. Unlike stock blinds offered at big box retailers, Blindster blinds are custom made for your windows and shipping is free. Don't hire an expensive pro. Do it yourself and save big at Blindster.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Bronny James has been cleared to participate in all activities at this week's NBA pre-draft camp in Chicago. LeBron's son got the good news late Sunday from the NBA's Fitness to Play panel. The decision allows the former USC player to compete in 5-on-5 scrimmages, which begin Tuesday. Personnel from all 30 NBA teams will be at the pre-draft camp to evaluate Bronny and 77 other prospects. Bronny has until May 29th to pull his name out of the draft and stay in college. The Atlanta Hawks will have the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. Atlanta won the NBA lottery yesterday, despite having only a 3% chance to win it. The NBA draft is June 26th in Brooklyn. The Dodgers lose by 4 at San Diego yesterday. It was the second time this season the Dodgers have been shut out. The Dodgers open a 3-game series tonight in San Francisco. The Dodgers still have the 3rd best record in the major leagues at 27-15. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, it's Tavis Smiley. First, thank you for your support of KBLA Talk 1580. We deeply appreciate you. So, I get asked all the time, Tavis, when are you going to bring back that State of the Black Union Symposium you used to do? You know the one where you had all those black intellectuals on stage every year and everybody watched all day live on C-SPAN? Yeah, I know the one. Let's bring them back. Well, I am pleased to tell you that if you go to KBLA1580.com right now, you can sign up to be in the audience here in Los Angeles when we go back live on C-SPAN with a stage full of black thinkers and influencers for a historic conversation. America has never seen a stage full of black folk talking about the urgency of now. Climate justice, climate equity, climate resilience. It's going down Tuesday, June 18th, 4 to 7 p.m. at the California Science Center in Exposition Park. Admission is free, but you must register at KBLA1580.com. Once we reach capacity, you'll have to watch us on C-SPAN. But if you want to be in the room when we go live from Los Angeles, Tuesday, June 18th, head to KBLA1580.com right now to reserve your seat. Caring about the climate, caring about the community. With KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. I believe up there. Hey!
4 minutes past the hour. We are in the home stretch of the Tavis Smiley program for this Monday, May 13th, 2024. Tavis is taking a well-deserved rest. Somebody asked in the chat, what happened? Tavis on vacation? he actually is taking this time to pay homage to his dad. So we should probably acknowledge that, because families, and we just celebrated Mother's Day. It takes two to make a Tavis Smiley, takes two to make me, takes two to make everybody. So we should acknowledge Tavis's dad. Another person came in and said, "Good to see a news show that I was raised up on watching. So Bet, keep it up. Keep up the great work. I definitely appreciate your contribution. Thank you very much for that contribution." Somebody else wants to know, why is the squad still only a squad and not a platoon? Progressive and woke, and the word woke incenses me because most people that use it have no clue, repeat, no clue where the term came from. I will enlighten you before the end of the week where the term woke actually came from. And it says they don't have much of a following from Democrat voters. If they didn't have any following from Democrat, see, when you see Democrat, you might as well say the person that wrote it's a Republican. It's Democratic voters. And if they didn't have any support, they wouldn't be a squad. They'd have got voted out of office really, really quickly. And they haven't had that happen. And they said they don't get non-voters to vote either. I don't know where they get the stats on that, but it's nice to know. And by the way, Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene, two fellow travelers on the Conservative Express, but they don't even get along with each other. They couldn't even form a half a squad. So keep that in mind. When we were talking about Israel earlier, somebody came in and said Israel has done the barbaristic acts of murder. It's barbarian acts of murder. So, people go back and forth about that. And, that I hope for peace. That's just my thing. I hope that people can get together and hammer this out and make peace happen. Our guests, and it's a pleasure to have both of them on the line with us, Cheryl Brown Henderson and Michael Meltsner. Cheryl Brown Henderson is founding president of the Brown Foundation for Educational Equity, Excellence, and Research, and the owner of Brown and Associates, an educational consulting firm. Her father, Oliver Brown, was one of the plaintiffs in the original Brown versus Board of Education decision. Michael Meltsner is Matthews Distinguished University Professor of Law Emeritus and retired law professor from Northeastern University. He was, in fact, hired by Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Pleasure to have you both with us. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me get one thing out of the way fairly quickly. Professor Meltsner, you are a published author in addition to all the other things you've done, huh?
Well, thank you for mentioning it. It's a hard world for selling books these days. My latest novel is a civil rights era true crime book called Mosaic. I'm very proud of it.
Fantastic. Now, Cheryl Brown Henderson, let me ask you right off the bat. Coming up, were you aware of how the Brown versus Board of Education decision changed America, changed the lives of Black people in America?
No, and as long as we're talking about books, I also want to refer people to our website, brownvboard.org. We have a new book that is an anthology. It's a collection of essays written by plaintiffs in the 5 cases that were consolidated under Brown v. Board by the U.S. Supreme Court. No, I was not aware. And I think anything as significant as Brown v. Board, it takes a certain level of maturity before you even develop an interest. My father died in 1961, so he didn't live very long after the decision was handed down. And in that 7 years, the country had not fully come to terms with what it might mean for the nation. So it took becoming an adult, late 20s, early 30s, before I developed a real interest in trying to figure out what happened, how we were involved, meeting and talking to the others that were involved, etc.
I did some reading about the work that took place before the decision, the work that actually got the case before the Supreme Court. And one of the things that really struck me was that both Thurgood Marshall and Charles Houston literally put their lives on the line to try and get this case before the courts. Can you either of you perhaps talk about what kinds of dangers these two men faced as they were assembling the information to bring the case?
Well, the first danger was that they would lose. And so it was an orchestrated way of bringing cases, usually with graduate students, to set the table for the ultimate decision. But Thurgood Marshall traveled the South at a time when he was always in physical danger. Stories about how close he came to being lethally attacked.
Did people not know exactly what he was in these different towns and cities doing? What was it? Because the reading I had done made it sound as if they really kind of had to go on the down low, to use a colloquial term, to not, make their intentions known to the general populace.
He lived a life that almost no lawyer has ever lived, and he understood the risks.
He did understand the risk. Okay. And Cheryl Brown Henderson, your foundation obviously says that you have taken the role of education advocate very, very seriously. Tell us about how you got into that.
Correct. I also wanted to comment on your question about the danger. The litigants themselves were in grave danger, especially across the South in Virginia and Carolina. The Briggs family, for example, Mr. Briggs had to leave the state to find employment. Litigants, it's believed.
Oh, wow. It seems like we're having a bit of a problem with Miss Brown Henderson's feed. So what I think, are we going to need to take a break maybe and see if we can get that straightened out? How about we do that? This is the Tavis Smiley program. My name is Mark Riley. We'll be back in a minute because it's the 70th anniversary of the historic Brown versus Board of Education decision.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
Hey y'all, Mona Swain here from Target's new YouTube series, My Cart is Full, where we feature Black founders and creators highlighting their connection to our community. As an actor and content creator, I love using my voice to inspire young Black women who look like me. When it comes to feeding my shine, seeing myself reflected in Black-owned and founded products at Target brings me joy. Together, we are Black Beyond Measure. Learn more at target.com/Black Beyond Measure.
Cookie wants to be a professional wrestler.
I'm Cookie Serratos, and I'm 11 years old.
She also wants to win all the medals. That's why Cookie and her family make every day count, squeezing out her best with Go-Go Squeeze.
Okay, Cookie, let's break for a Go-Go Squeeze.
Go-Go Squeeze Fruit on the Go pouches are a nutritious snack made from 100% fruit with no sugar added.
Go, Cookie!
Because when you nurture your kids, you squeeze out the best in them. Squeeze out the best with Go-Go Squeeze. Not a low-calorie food. Products range from 11 to 13 grams of sugar and 60 to 70 calories per serving.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well-trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
call your senior Medicare Patrol. To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
When you use Bounce dryer sheets and your clothes look amazing, it's the sheet. Less static in your life? Yeah, it's the sheet. Smelling fresher than ever? It's the sheet. Oh, so soft fabric? Ooh la la. It's the sheet. Less wrinkles on your clothes? You know it's the sheet. Bounce dryer sheets. More freshness, more softness. Less static, less wrinkles. It's the sheet.
Getting quality employees to fill positions in your company is essential, but finding those people can be a major hassle unless you use ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter makes finding quality people a breeze. ZipRecruiter's advanced technology identifies candidates with the right skills, sends you great matches, then you can easily invite them to apply. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. See for yourself. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/free to try ZipRecruiter for free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Ready to re-examine your assumptions and expand your inventory of ideas? More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
16 minutes past the hour. This is the Tavis Smiley program. My name is Mark Riley, sitting in for Tavis with our guests, Cheryl Brown Henderson and Michael Meltsner. Let me ask you, Cheryl Brown Henderson, a little bit about something that's kind of a bug of mine, because you've been involved in education advocacy for a very long time. Are young people, regardless of race, by the way, being taught enough about how to think critically?
No, my answer is no, they are not. I think that when you look at what some of the governors are doing, like DeSantis in Florida, and look at Texas, you look at Oklahoma, you look at Mississippi, you look at what's happening, absolutely not. Not only are they attempting to sanitize the curriculum when it comes to civil rights and race and slavery, but there's also an effort to just create a system where children are almost indoctrinated in the wrong things and encouraged to only think one way. So I would say absolutely not. There's a lot of rolling up our sleeves and improving the quality of education that needs to happen across the board.
What do you think has to happen to make that improvement take place?
Well, I think for one thing, I've been really shocked by the lack of pushback to, first of all, the sanitizing of history and removing us from that. I also have been shocked by nobody stepping up and explaining the idea of critical race theory and the fact that, all it is a way to get people to critically examine, what's before them. So I'm not sure. The Department of Education only has limited authority within individual school districts. So at the end of the day, I would say that more people that recognize and understand what's happening need to place themselves in positions of running for school board or going to school board meetings and speaking up, volunteering in our schools, but really rattling, really making some change, really making some noise. We're all becoming very complacent and complicit.
Professor Meltsner, I'd like to ask you a little bit to go back in time and talk about when Thurgood Marshall hired you for the NAACP legal fund.
Well, it was 1961, and I, as a recent graduate of law school, and I was fortunate there was a staff opening. There were only 5 or 6 of us at the Legal Defense Fund then. And he contacted or heard from one of my professors at the Yale Law School. And I was lucky to get the job. And responsibility came very quickly because there were so few of us. And the responsibilities were across the board. Can I say a few things about Brown?
Yes, please.
Well, Brown is 70, as you reported, and like any 70-year-old, it's had a lot of ups and downs along the way. And how it was understood and experienced in the beginning is very different than the way it is experienced and thought of and talked about today. the first thing I think most people have forgotten is that the court had to overcome incredible legal doctrinal problems in order to decide Brown. It's quite clear the Constitution said nothing about racial distinctions in the positive sense. And the framers of the 14th Amendment, which was used to overcome Plessy v. Ferguson and decide Brown in 1868, they probably did not think that they were affecting schools. And there were hardly, public schools were not very developed at the time. And there are other reasons why it was a hard pull. The court finessed it. And the really fascinating thing about the opinion in Brown is that it was not about white supremacy and racism. Chief Justice Warren knew that he had to get a unanimous court. And so he wrote a very short opinion that he explicitly said, I'm writing this not to be accusatory. He never mentioned the dissent in Plessy by Justice Harlan, which was a much stronger opinion. And he just said that in public education, it can't be equal if people are separated. He didn't go into what we talk about today as white supremacy and structural racism or anything of the kind. He had a very clear agenda. And what happened thereafter really followed along that. It was not until 1968 that there was significant desegregation in Dixie. Well, border states were a little better. But the all deliberate speed decision, which followed Brown, it was Brown 2, it's generally known, in 1955, put this language that the actual desegregation could take place at all deliberate speed. And of course, the South resisted the opinion and understood all deliberate speed to mean tomorrow. So that was the way Brown was in the beginning.
So it really didn't deal with some of the more contemporary issues that now are kind of attributed to it. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly right. On the other hand, it accomplished something truly amazing. You have to realize that on May 16th, 1954, a third of the states in the United States had legal principles that said black and white could not go to school together, prohibited. On May 17th or May 18th, 1954, all those laws were gone. I mean, they were technically gone. They were no longer enforceable. That was an amazing result, given the legal problems in getting a unanimous court and the history that the Supreme Court faced. But then there followed the years of very, very little action. And even in non-school situations, the Supreme Court acted kind of slowly and somewhat silently. It didn't make a big deal about it was what it was doing. But then the people took over, and sit-ins and freedom rides and the Civil Rights Act. And in 1968, in a court case came out in New Kent County in Virginia that I was part of, fortunately, the court said no more deliberate speed. And there then followed a number of years until the mid-70s where there was actual integration among Americans' public schools. And then the Supreme Court under Justice Rehnquist and others, Berger and Rehnquist, shut it down, and that has continued to this day. But that does not tell you the full story of Brown v. Board of Education, because it is sacrosanct. That's why we're having this program. It is something that a politician would be very careful not to disregard and dispute. And yet, in the law, it has a very, very troubled history, because under the present Supreme Court, of course, a sign saying, as Justice Stevens once wrote, a sign saying, blacks are welcome, is considered the same as a sign that says blacks don't come. In other words, Chief Justice Roberts has led the court to say that any use of race, even for remedial purposes, even to end white supremacy, is highly, highly suspect. And one more thing, this will probably surprise many of your listeners, but when the Supreme Court recently did away with Roe v. Wade, it was accused of not following precedent the way many of the justices had promised. Well, in that opinion, Brown v. Board of Education is cited 22 times by the justices. Why? Because they're saying, well, look, Brown did away with Plessy, did away with separate but equal, so we're just getting rid of a decision we think was wrongly decided. So Brown is still a tremendously important piece of American law and culture, and it's great to celebrate it. But it has an up and down, troubled history with lots of great days and lots of bad ones, just the way most 70-year-olds think about their lives.
Don't say that, please. I'm over 70. But no, I
well,
understand.
So am I. So I've lived it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to take a break shortly. But when we come back, I want to talk a little bit with Cheryl Brown Henderson about some of the things that are going on in schools across America, including the schools that decided to rename their institutions after Confederate. I believe it's generals. It's difficult for me to keep up with that here because it's not something that's followed in the media every day here in the UK. But I do know that this has taken place. Two school boards who had previously voted to eliminate the Confederate references, and now they've decided, I think almost by the identical margin, to bring them back. And I'm wondering, and I want to get into this when we come back, what that means for the future of American education. And I know that may sound like a very broad brush, but I get a sense that there is this clinging to a legacy that is, to me, utterly amazing. I mean, the Confederates did lose the war, but it seems as though they're kind of winning the peace on a certain level. And I just find it amazing, utterly amazing that, we have this kind of discussion and back and forth going on in the 21st century, much less 2024. But we'll get back to that shortly. Our guests are Cheryl Brown Henderson, and an educator, longtime educator and advocate, and Professor Michael Meltsner, Matthews Distinguished University Professor of Law Emeritus and retired law professor from Northeastern University. He's got a new crime novel out called Mosaic, and I want to make sure we get into a little bit of what that particular work is all about. So I think we can probably, at this point, say we've got a really great half hour left with you today. And again, it is my honor to be sitting in for the great Tavis Smiley on his program here on KBLA and affiliated stations across these great United States. Of course, I'm not in these great United States, but I'm really, really honored to be asked to do this. And stay with us. we're going to be back with the last half hour.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know the United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time? Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. I'm Mike Moore. Now here's the latest from the Black Information Network. A court fight over a deposition from former Chicago, Illinois Mayor Lori Lightfoot is over. A Cook County judge ruled recently that the city no longer can keep private the ex-mayor's statements about a police pursuit and crash that led to the 2020 death of a 10-year-old child. The girl's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the city. The African-American former mayor could be called to the witness stand to testify in the trial set for November. Mystic Dan will try to make a run for the Triple Crown this year. Officials announced over the weekend that the Kentucky Derby winner will run in the Preakness Stakes at Pimlico Racecourse and is on his way to Baltimore. Justify was the last horse to win the Triple Crown back in 2018. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com, and I sell custom blinds designed for do-it-yourselfers. Unlike stock blinds offered at big box retailers, Blindster blinds are custom made for your windows and shipping is free. Don't hire an expensive pro. Do it yourself and save big at Blindster.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Bronny James has been cleared to participate in all activities at this week's NBA pre-draft camp in Chicago. LeBron's son got the good news late Sunday from the NBA's Fitness to Play panel. The decision allows the former USC player to compete in 5-on-5 scrimmages, which begin Tuesday. Personnel from all 30 NBA teams will be at the pre-draft camp to evaluate Bronny and 77 other prospects. Bronny has until May 29th to pull his name out of the draft and stay in college. The Atlanta Hawks will have the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. Atlanta won the NBA lottery yesterday, despite having only a 3% chance to win it. The NBA draft is June 26th in Brooklyn. The Dodgers lose by 4 at San Diego yesterday. It was the second time this season the Dodgers have been shut out. The Dodgers open a 3-game series tonight in San Francisco. The Dodgers still have the third best record in the major leagues at 27-15. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
If you say you care about the community, you have to also care about the climate. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black. We've got a lot to talk about.
Race, culture wars, political turf battles, criminal justice, and injustice. The courts. These are the conversations you won't hear elsewhere. My guests are leading journalists, celebrities, and sports figures, elected leaders, and influencers. They aren't afraid to get into it and say the quiet part out loud. With Ariva Martin in real time, your commute just became the most engaging part of your day. Tune in weekdays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. or find us on YouTube. Ariva Martin in real time, when you want it straight, no chaser.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Yeah. The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
Some days I cover up because of my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis. Now I'm hitting the road with clearer skin thanks to Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. With Skyrizi, 3 out of 4 people achieved 90% clearer skin at 4 months. And Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKY-RIZI to learn more.
Who do you trust to get at the truth? Tavis Smiley. That's who. The conversation continues right now.
Absolutely. Tavis Smiley. Mark Riley sitting in for Tavis, and I'm so glad to be with you on this day. Our guests are Cheryl Brown Henderson and Michael Meltsner, Professor Michael Meltsner, I should say that properly. And Cheryl Brown Henderson, I wanted to ask you, before the break, we were talking about the effect of some of these schools deciding to rename themselves after Confederate generals. Why do you think this is happening, and why is it such a big deal?
I first want to apologize because I need to circle back very quickly to a comment that was made previously about what Earl Warren selected to read from the Brown opinion, and the suggestion that it did not reference white supremacy when in fact it did, because the other part of the opinion, the part of the opinion he decided to read, talks about how segregation, the weight of law in public schools, saddled African American children with a badge of inferiority in ways that were likely never to be undone. And I do think that references the fact that, they were living under a system of white supremacy that caused them to feel certain ways. The other part of the opinion I believe he should have read talked about the significance of education when he said that education is the most important act of state and local governments, and that no child can be expected to succeed in life without the benefit of an education. Then he goes on to say, in that opinion, that where it is provided, it is a right that must be provided on equal terms. And then secondly, I wanted to add that the pushback to Brown was rather immediate. School choice was a phrase that emerged out of the pushback to Brown. School vouchers emerged as a result of the pushback to Brown. The state of Virginia, the governor of Virginia, led a campaign to issue school vouchers to white parents who did not want their children attending schools with African Americans, and to penalizing school districts that were planning to comply with Brown. So, this pushback was rather immediate and has continued to this day. Now, in terms of what we're seeing with some of the school naming, people are claiming the justification is that it's purely history. I beg to differ, because even though the South lost the physical war, we all know that they won the war of ideology, that the idea of white supremacy and the second-class citizenship for African Americans permeate this entire country. So it worries me that we're giving them a place of honor wrongfully, and even trying to couch it in wanting to teach our children about history, to recognize them in that way, I think is ill-conceived and short-sighted.
But it's interesting. History seems to be a kind of subjective sort of thing. There are certain parts of history that Americans don't know anything anything about. For example, if you ask somebody about the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, they're going to look at you like you got three heads. Yet, it is
Right.
a part of
Right.
American history.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. And so maybe in some ways, but naming a building to me is an undeserved honor. It's one thing to talk about the Confederacy in a history class, and focus on it in a curriculum, but to have that name on a school, I certainly find it objectionable.
Yeah, but there really nothing can be done about it, can it? Because it's, it's an individual board of education that makes a decision, right?
Of course. I mean, yeah, I mean, everything is up for grabs, it's all a matter of how much pushback, how much noise people are willing to make, how many protests they're willing to organize to dissuade them, how much are they willing to attend school board meetings to elevate their voices. The challenge with everything in this country is always the willingness to elevate the voices of those who believe they're on the right side of history.
Important point. Professor Meltsner, I have a couple of things I want to ask you about. But first and foremost, I guess I want to know a little bit more about Mosaic. What exactly is the book about?
Well, until the 1963, when we won a lawsuit, in 64, when the Great Civil Rights Act was passed, American hospitals could exclude blacks or segregate them under federal law if the hospitals took federal money. And when we won a case in North Carolina declaring that unconstitutional, the federal government was suddenly obliged to force hundreds of hospitals, mostly in the South, but not always, to integrate and increase the level of health care for Americans who are African Americans. And many of these hospitals complied, but about 20% of them played games. They pretended to integrate. One famous story has a federal inspector being taken into a hospital to check, and the superintendent of the hospital saying, "Oh, well, we're integrated. Here, let me show you a ward." And he took him into a ward where there were 4 people in beds, and they were all comatose. One was white, one was black, one was Mexican. So that's the way they played games. Well, a charismatic and courageous doctor in Mobile, Alabama, secretly informed the federal government what was going on at the biggest hospital in Mobile. And when the federal government sent an inspector down, the inspector foolishly contacted this doctor, and it's pretty obvious that somebody found out, because 10 days later, she was found shot to death.
Oh, my God.
The city said, it must have been an accident, or maybe she had a lesbian lover or a black lover. Or all the papers disappeared. Because I was the main healthcare lawyer, among other things, at LDF, the Legal Defense Fund, I knew a great deal about this. Nothing happened until 5 or 10 years ago. I was contacted by a researcher who said, "I think she was murdered." I said, "I think so too, but can we prove it?" And so we investigated, and we found that all the records disappeared, and almost everyone who was involved was deceased. And so I told the researcher I was sorry, but there was nothing we could do. 2 weeks later, I woke up in the middle of the night with a sweat, and I decided I had to do something. And the result is Mosaic, Who Paid for the Bullet, which is a true crime book. It follows the story, although there are characters who I've created. So that's the story of Mosaic, Who Paid for the Bullet. And It's out there at Amazon and all those other places.
Right. Now, we have to take a break shortly, but when we come back, I want to ask each of you in turn a bit about Justice Thurgood Marshall, particularly because he hired you, Professor Meltsner. I'm curious whether he was a tough boss, and I want to get a sense from Cheryl Brown Henderson what you believe his legacy, in fact, is. This is the Tavis Smiley program. We're in the home stretch. I'm here till Thursday. Like it or not, stay with us.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley. Tavis Smiley. Ranked number 45 on the Heavy 100 list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the fastest growing talk radio station in Southern California, home to 50,000 watts and an audience reach of 12 million listeners. KBLA Talk 1580 is a pioneer for Black audio content, including our groundbreaking $2 million climate justice campaign and the most loyal, influential audience. According to an independent research study by the polling firm Aviterus, for the second consecutive year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the most trustworthy, reliable, and credible news source for Black audiences and beyond in Southern California. Let KBLA Talk 1580 power your advertising dollars. Our omni-channel custom marketing solutions are specifically tailored to connect with your ideal target audience. We leverage audio, podcasts, streaming, digital, social media, and local activations to get your message out to the Black community. Get in touch with our advertising team today at advertising@kbla1580.com. That's advertising at kbla1580.com. KBLA 1580. We've got you Black. Smart talk for curious people just like you. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
12 minutes before the hour, my name is Mark Riley, sitting in for Tavis. Between now and Thursday, our guests, Cheryl Brown Henderson, educator, advocate, and Professor Michael Meltsner, who is a distinguished professor from Northeastern University. I wanted to get from each of you, as we end the program for today, your memories in the case of Professor Meltsner, and just your sense from Ms. Brown Henderson of the legacy of Thurgood Marshall. And let me ask you first, Professor Meltsner, was he a tough boss when he hired you?
Yeah, he was a complicated person, and he was a combination of a passion for justice a brilliant, shrewd tacticianer, and one of the funniest guys, one of the funniest people I've ever known. He could have done stand-up. And he used, this is my takeaway memory of Thurgood. He used stories. He's a great storyteller. And he used stories as a way of supervising and educating and moving you in the direction he wanted you to go as a boss. So he might tell you an anecdote about something in his life. Often these are things that would not be easily repeated on the radio. But he wasn't really telling you that story. He was telling you that, God damn it, there was a paragraph in your brief that you ought to rewrite.
Really?
He had a way of telling stories as a way of conveying something about our job, our mission, even though that was not what the story on the surface seemed to be. He was a great boss.
Wow. And Cheryl Brown Henderson, obviously, you weren't hired by Thurgood Marshall. You were way too young. But what do you think his lasting legacy is?
From what I've come to understand in reading Juan Williams' book, for example, Thurgood Marshall, American Revolutionary, is that he viewed the law as the foundation for social change. Now, this was a man that recognized if you could dismantle that legal framework for racial segregation, they would have nothing to stand on. And I think he was determined to expand the rights of African Americans by using the rule of law, his abiding respect for the rule of law. But ultimately, I think of him as a kitchen table lawyer, meaning he was somebody that would sit down at that kitchen table and listen to the families, to the litigants, and roll up his sleeves and make sure what they were asking him, the help that they were seeking, could take place.
Wow. Now, do you think that, well, maybe Professor Meltsner, you're the better person to ask about this. Do you get a sense that Thurgood Marshall was supportive of the demonstrations and the sit-ins that were taking place throughout the country in the 1960s?
Well, first, it's well known that he was very skeptical of them. And in the beginning, he basically took the position that, well, maybe this guy, King, maybe he's not on the right course. But he shifted as things moved ahead. But his first instincts were, as the Legal Defense Fund operated in the early days, were for legal change through courts.
Ah, okay. That's a very important point to make, because there were a lot of changes that did, in fact, come through the courts, but also did, in fact, come because people sat in and exposed themselves, in some cases, to life-threatening injuries in order to get certain things done and certain things passed. Professor Meltsner, Cheryl Brown Henderson, thank you both so much for being with us. It's the 70th anniversary of Brown versus Board of Education, which is what date?
May 17th.
Whoops. Is it the 17th or 18th?
17th.
17th. 1-7.
Okay, 17th. And I hope that people will mark that day, because it really did change America. Thank you both so much for being with us. We'll be back in a moment with the end of the program.
Seeking the truth. Speaking the truth. This is the Tavis Smiley Show.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful they saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
When you get nachos, tacos, empanadas, spicy queso with jalapenos, Pepto-Bismol's there. Pepto-Bismol provides fast, effective relief from nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, and diarrhea. All the things that can happen unexpectedly on vacation. So before you travel, pack the Pepto. Pepto-Bismol.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZQuil.
ZQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZQuil nights. Explore our products at ZQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
JP Morgan Chase is building on the investments in California and around the country to help close the racial wealth gap and build a more equitable future. As part of JP Morgan Chase commitment, they are taking action to help improve financial wealth and access to banking in the Black community, helping more people open low-cost checking and savings accounts, hosting community seminars with supporting Black-led institutions by building awareness about financial investments, hiring community managers, and opening community center branches like Crenshaw, Inglewood, and downtown LA. Visit today, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Again, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Get the tools to help reach your financial goals. Visit today, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Again, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity.
Let's get back to more of Tavis Smiley right now.
That's right now. But it's not Tavis Smiley. My name is Mark Riley. Got a couple of minutes left, and there were just a couple of things I wanted to get off my chest. I mentioned earlier that some things, because I don't process information the same way most people do. Anybody who knows me, and most of you don't, know that I just look at things from a very, very different perspective. And a lot of it has to do with critical thinking, because I was taught critical thinking both by my family and my education. I was very, very fortunate in that regard. And it led me to question just about anything and everything. Why not? And even though as a kid, my mom used to go upside my head when I questioned too much, I kept questioning. I kept asking. When I was like 6, 7, 8 years old, I used to ask my mother about, the positioning of the stars in the sky. Why was it this way and not this way? That's the kind of person I was. And I was nurtured by an awful lot of great human beings. And I emphasize great human beings. That's why I get angry and sometimes take umbrage at the use of the term influencer. The first time I heard it, I said, what the boop is an influencer? Because I started thinking about the people who were important in my life, and I realized that they didn't do for me what they did for money. It wasn't about money. It was about making us, and specifically making me, a better human being. And sometimes that involves some very tough love, and I mean very tough love. But they did it, and they did it without regard to recompense. Absolutely without regard. So the idea that people get paid to try and get people to do certain things, and I'm not going to name names, you all know who they are. And I know there are people who are on this radio station who, in fact, interview influencers. I thoroughly understand that, because it's become a widespread term, I guess, for want of a better word. And I think that, it may be for some people in this generation something that they find important, something that they believe to be enhancing their existences. But I come from a school, because I'm not a kid, I come from a school where influencers were people who, for example, and this happened to me once, when you showed up at 2 minutes past 8 o'clock and he told you to be there at 8, he would look at me and growl and say, I told you to be here at 8 o'clock. Be here. And for all these years, I just have to be on time for everything. I just have to. Tomorrow, we have India Walton, Dr. Melody McLeod, and Ronald Hall. We're going to talk with India Walton about the anniversary of the Buffalo Massacre. Take care, everyone. Thanks for being with us.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Hello.
Hey.
Can you hear me?